Hello, and welcome back to Blush and Bloom, the podcast where we have honest conversations about women's health. And these days, we're also discussing innovation and the people building the future of healthcare. I'm your host, Gigi. I'm also the founder of Asele, and today's guest brings deep insight into one of the most personal and fast changing areas of health, fertility. Joining me is Yesica Méndez, a global FemTech leader and entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience driving innovation in reproductive health. She is the co-founder and CEO of WeFIV and the founder and CEO of FemTech Latin America. From working with IVF clinics to consulting across the med-femtech space, Yesica has been on the front lines of fertility care and healthcare innovation around the world. In this conversation, we talk about her journey into the fertility space, what's shifting in the global reproductive health market, and how new technologies like AI are starting to reshape the way we think about care. She's also going to share advice for founders entering this space and what it means to lead with both business acumen and heart. I hope you enjoy. Okay. Hi, Yesica. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And for listeners who are meeting you for the first time, how do you usually describe yourself, introduce yourself,
Okay,
and what do you do?
great. Well, Gigi, thank you again for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I feel honored. So, and well, going straight to your question, I usually present myself as an entrepreneur. I also became a femtech pioneer and expert and a healthcare consultant. My work is related to women's health and well-being and the intersection with the health technology and fertility especially. And I am committed to improving and advancing the femtech and fertility innovation in Latin America.
And thank you so much. And so, from your background, you've worked across healthcare, entrepreneurship, consulting, and you're working in femtech. So, is there some kind of thread that connects all your work together?
Yes, I would say that definitely the thread is impact and purpose. Every time I think of a project and I can see how we can positively impact on people's life, that's truly the thread that connects everything when I look backwards and forward. So building the femtech ecosystem, a fertility clinic, even mentoring some entrepreneur, that's it. The impact and the purpose, of course.
That makes sense, and that's really cool that you're also mentoring people, because I think it's very important to, like, as you grow, helping others grow as well.
Absolutely. We do not get here alone, like telling others some pieces of advice from your experience. I truly appreciate when someone's mentored me, and I wanted to give the same to the people who ask for advice.
That makes sense. Yes. So I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that. So far, with your experience with mentoring, has there been a common question that you get from people who approach you?
Regarding mentoring, sometimes it's specifically about work they are doing at university. So
Okay.
it's more like data and like business model. But in terms of dealing with the leadership and the background or the culture in the field or in their companies, a common question, let me think, I would say, how do they know?
Sorry, like maybe from your femtech mentees?
Okay, so yes, what I felt is some when talking and mentoring other women is how do we get out of this sense of frustration sometimes, because it's not easy to pitch in front of investors. There is some kind of stigma, and it's more difficult for women to pitch in front of investors, for example. That's a common question, and it's like we have to do a cultural job here in order to change that. So I'm trying to help in that at the moment. And it's a global thing, not only in Latin America.
Yeah. Okay. And another question I have for you is, so you've been in healthcare innovation for over 20 years, which is very impressive. So what first pulled you into this space, and what has kept you going in the space?
Well, at first, I landed here in healthcare almost by accident, and then because I came from a background in business and finance, and then I saw the human side of healthcare, and I love it. So I decided. I chose to stay. It's related to what we were talking previously about the purpose, this sense of purpose, building families, for example, in the fertility space, or impact positively in women's life through, bridge that gap that exists in healthcare today. So then I like it, and I decided to stay.
That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that for you. And so, can you tell the audience a bit about your company, how it started, and what makes it unique in the fertility space?
Sure. WeFIV was born in 2021, and we were previously part of a global group called IVRMA, which is a Spanish company. And then they decided to left the country for macroeconomic reasons. But rather than ending the journey, we continue with the operation under a new brand, but with the same. But we told when we launched WeFIV, is the same DNA, because we kept people, and now what I believe make us truly unique is this more digital and more center in the patient, the solution that we are trying to build and align to the future of the fertility in the region.
That's so cool. And so, before we talk more about WeFIV, so you started FemTech Latin America, and so you mentioned something earlier. We talked about how you're helping your mentees with managing their stage presence when they're pitching. So I think that's one of the gaps, I guess, that helped you want to create this. So are there any other gaps you were seeing in the Latin America that made you start the community?
Yes, well, I noticed that this femtech movement and innovation around women's health was booming globally, but Latin America is always lagging behind. So there are amazing women working in silos and without this support and these visibilities. There is a trend that is still, we have to raise awareness. It's not so in the common talk when I go to some events in healthcare or in health tech, for example. So bridging that gap, accelerate, connect, give voice to this regional movement is something that I'm working on.
Okay. That's really awesome. And so, from your experience so far, has the attitude towards fertility care and women's health changed in Latin America over the past decade, or what needs to work?
Okay, I think there has been progress, like more awareness, less stigma and less taboo, and there has been a growing access to treatments because they are expensive. Even though that it depends on the country, they usually are expensive treatments. So many of these conversations, fortunately, like egg freezing or the IVF, are part of the mainstream, but some other topics like menopause or egg donation are still taboo. So I believe that there is job to be done on that in the region.
Okay. So, still layering on that question. So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people come with around IVF and assisted reproductive tech?
One big misconception is that IVF is a guaranteed solution. This is something I believe it's one misconception. But now, for example, many of these IVF treatments are it's not only for infertility. That's another misconception, that patients with infertility, many people choose the treatments because of family planning, preventing, for example, health issues through genetic testing. Well, there are many types of family nowadays, a solo parenthood, the community, the LGBTQ. So that's the two misconceptions, the guarantee solution, and the other one is only for infertility people, and that is something is not true. It's my personal view on that.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. So, what's something that you wish more women knew earlier in life about fertility options and timelines?
Well, I mean, I believe that One big thing that I would say is that we talk women at early stage in life about these fertility options, and that fertility declines over years. There is this timeline that I wish every woman knew about this. So that is something I wish more women knew earlier.
Okay. So another question is, so there's been like a lot of discussions recently about egg donation. I think thanks to social media, there's more conversations around these topics, egg donation, egg preservation. So how do you approach these topics with empathy, but also business sense? Because these are very sensitive topics.
Yes. Well, I think empathy comes first always. I can see that when nature doesn't cooperate and the baby is not coming between a couple, for example, it's great that science has given us options. You know, our role is to create a safe space in which the patient can choose, can think, and they explore their options without pressure. So um, that's what we do, and trying to be more respectful we can, bearing all this in mind.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. And okay, let's talk a bit more about your leadership style. So you've built teams and companies from the ground up. So what's something that has surprised you about leading in the women's health space?
What surprised me was the stories behind the women I knew, and what made them started in the femtech space, for example, or in the women's health. And also, we are part of a system that was not designed for us. There is like a cultural change that we need to do in terms of leading. So we are not just leading companies, we are leading this cultural change. And there is a sisterhood spirit, very nice. I'm part of this Femtech Across Borders group. There is a solidarity among us, shared purpose, and that's truly moved me and surprised me about the leadership.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I also agree, like myself also transitioning into this space. I've been welcomed with a lot of open arms, and I'm excited to see it, because it's nice to like be in a space where there are a lot of women who are excited for you and want to support you, on your journey. It's very nice.
Yes, I agree.
So FemTech as a whole is growing pretty fast these days, but it's not always evenly. So what's your take on founders and investors? What are they getting right or wrong about this moment?
So the growing interest I can see is real, and that's a win. But many investors still see femtech as a niche, and it's not. I mean, it's a 50% of the population. It's a huge opportunity. One of the big challenges I see is that innovation doesn't reach every woman equally, because we have to bear in mind that not all women have access to a smartphone and download an app, for example. And even we have marginalized zones here and remote areas in Latin America that needs education, for example, basic health education. And that's something that I would say about founders and investors are not getting quite right, in the region.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a bit more time, as if it hasn't already taken a lot of time for us to even get to this point.
And sorry, but we also need more women in the investment table. This fortunately, new generations and decreasing the taboo are more women in STEM. That's a complete.
I agree. A lot has changed over the past couple of years. I think it's thanks to social media and women like you, and I think also the other women I'm going to be interviewing and I have interviewed, who have like stepped up and are talking about this space. So really exciting for where this area will lead. We'll see.
Yes, for example, we have the Amazonas in Brazil, and well, it's very difficult to reach that area. So we have to be inclusive in designing solutions and diverse, bearing in mind all those conditions.
That makes sense. So we're going to talk about the next flashy thing in tech, AI, of course. So I see you've been exploring how to use AI in this space. So how do you see AI evolving in general and in FemTech or in your work specifically, whichever you prefer, or all of them, within like the next, say, couple of years?
Okay, so what I can see is we are using AI in now in the fertility clinic. Everything is going to better data in order to choose, for example, embryos or sperms or oocytes. So for the diagnosis, and there are also a lot of tools that help physicians make smarter decisions in terms of the stimulation and also the best day for the puncture, the oocyte puncture. So or retrieval, sorry. And there are better there are better algorithms, and well, above all, the ethical frameworks that guide its use. That's what I can see in the couple of years ahead.
Okay. And speaking of ethics, so how do you think, like in general, like in femtech, that people can balance innovation with ethics? Because this is a very pressing topic in embedding AI in healthcare systems in general, as well as in femtech. So say in fertility care, like how do you see that happening?
Okay, so regarding ethics, well, we have this global scandal that started last Monday that involves Meta and Flow with the data privacy. So we have to, I mean, the first, for above all, trust must be prioritized, but femtech and healthcare in general. This print that is tiny. People that in good faith deliver their data, they need to know their use and how and why and where is it, and if it is shared, because they were targeting some advertising campaign with that sensitive data. So that's not possible at all. Well, that's what that is my opinion in terms of ethics in femtech. Like, information is power, and everyone has the right to know every aspect of what they are sharing with the companies.
That makes sense. And I think Flo got sued in like 2019 or so. I think like there has been more
than one.
Yeah, Flo. They got sued I think in 2019. I can't remember what happened afterwards, but I mean, I'm really intrigued that people are taking this particular one very, like, way more serious than the previous one. I can't recall what exactly they got sued for, but it was a data privacy breach as well. So, like, do you think that people are more interested in data privacy, like, now than prior years? Because I think, like, with the way AI is rapidly evolving, people are more interested in how their data is being used and collected. So, okay, how about we turn this to this question? So, like, how do you think femtech companies should be thinking about building user trust when building out their platforms? Like, how do they prioritize? How can they?
Well, they shouldn't be hidden this fine print. They have to be transparent about the data that is collected and why and how it will be used. And that's what I believe. I mean, femtech can't grow sustainably without trust. So this trust must be built from zero. I mean, in some of the startups that are entering the femtech ecosystem.
Okay. All right. So I want to go back to your company, WeFIV. So as the founder, like, what's your day-to-day like with the company? Like, what are you building? What's exciting right now? Like, maybe you can give us like some kind of inside scoop of what's exciting at your company.
Okay. What excites me about WeFIV is that we are becoming this concept that I love is patient 5.0, in which we can use technology to empower patients that they have more data than before in their cell phones. And that is something that truly likes me. And there is not much done in Argentina, technology. And we are always thinking how to improve the patient experience from this waiting room, the aspect of everything. And we are becoming more and more details. And also we are trying to make them more affordable. Fortunately, the outcomes of the treatments thanks to AI and new technologies, are great. Are much better than several years ago, and that's something positive about science. I truly believe that science has made people have options when they can't at home.
That's really cool. I'm still going to ask another question about WeFIV because I'm really interested in what you're building. The kind of clients that you have or patients. So what kind of people usually approach you for your services? Like maybe you have some advice for somebody out there who may actually need to use your platform. Like what kind of people usually use your app?
Well, WeFIV we are developing technology, but we do not have an app with still yet. Sorry.
Sorry.
So, oh, it's okay. Maybe I didn't explain myself correctly, but the kind of patient that came to our clinic, I would say that we have everything measured. The age is around 40. The women age that they approach, and fortunately, I can see that more women from younger women are freezing their eggs, and that is something that is growing faster than the ABF treatments of egg donation. Well, they approach with it with the truly desire of building or having a baby, and that's what I can recall now, and I would say about WeFIV.
That answers my question. And then I have a follow-up question to that. It's because I'm intrigued that you say that young people are approaching you more now. Do you think that there's a reason why that is? Like maybe people are prolonging how when they want to have a child, so they want to be safe and freeze their eggs on while they're younger, or they just what do you think?
Well, you know that socially and globally there is there is a huge social trend in which women enter the labor force, and that makes that they want to prioritize sometimes their careers, and they have this option freezing their eggs and planning maternity, or maybe for social reasons. Sometimes they don't want to have it alone, and well, they are single, so they can freeze their eggs and decide later on about the having or not a baby. That's what I think about this social. But on the other hand, what I can see, and I was reading, is that globally less children or babies are being born because you have to bear in mind the cost of bringing a baby.
Yes.
So it depends on the country you live. Sometimes it could be more or less expensive, and the stakeholders, it involves everyone. I mean, government, the private and the public system, because if you don't have a maternity leave or some leave for the father also, in order to balance that, and they can share the task around the house and around the child.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you so much for sharing with me like what's happening at WeFIV. This is very exciting. And so you do a lot of things around MBA programs, and I'm sure that involves a lot of like leadership, adjusting your leadership style, training people on on leadership. Compared to when you started, and compared to where you are right now, what does leadership look like for you now?
Well, at the beginning, I thought that leadership was about control and, making all the decisions and having answers for everything, and like leading a path. But now I've learned that leadership is about listening and building trust. I like to this, the being coherent and consistent, and also acting with integrity. That's what earns trust in the long run with people, and what truly is leadership about.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. So, what advice do you have for a woman who's navigating fertility decisions, or she's feeling overwhelmed by the options that are available, or she's under some kind of pressure? So, what advice would you give her?
Okay, well, that you don't have to decide everything today, that they can choose a professional who will walk this path with them and not push women. It's their journey and their pace. Take a breath, get informed, ask for help. And also, I'm an advocate of therapy. I mean, it's there is evidence, big evidence, that not only improves emotional well-being, but also the treatment outcomes. Emotional support is important, and no rush. I mean, their pace, their
Awesome.
journey.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And then another question I have for you is, so compared to when you started your company and where you're at now, what's a perspective that has changed about, say, your view on your work or femtech in general, or what's something that perspective that has changed?
Well, I would say that there is no need that doing it alone or do it all alone. In my case, for many years, I packed my schedule and almost to the limit of a burning out, thinking that was leadership requires, and that's not something. I mean, now I realize that it's not, and I have to also, like, not every meeting is urgent and not every opportunity is aligned. So I need to pause, prioritize, and be more intentional with how I spend my time. And that is something that I've learned in the recently, I would say. Um, and it's a big thing, because sometimes, I don't know, I try to do my best and do it all, and we can ask for help and also choose and being intentional with whom, with when, and with whom we are meeting, and if it is aligned to the projects.
Okay. Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we're basically wrapping up the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with me and the audience. So, what's one thing that you want our audience to walk away with from everything we've discussed, or something that you're excited to share about right now, or an advice that you wish someone who's just starting out in femtech, or a young girl who wants to venture into STEM? What kind of advice would you give? Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I agree. And I think if I understood you correctly, it also means that, like, sometimes things don't make sense going forward, but then as you look back, as you progress and keep going, it starts to
Yes,
make sense. And then also not doing things, trying not to do everything by yourself. So getting that support is very important. Thank you so much for sharing that. That gives me more encouragement to keep going, because I'm happy. I'm super excited that you responded to my request.
sure.
That was like, oh my God, these are like heavyweights in this industry. Oh my God. Thank you so much. Okay. So one more question. So somebody who wants to learn more about your work, FemTech, Latin America, WeFIV, where can they find all the details that they're going to need? Thank you so much. I'm going to include those in the description and the show notes after this. So thank you so much, Yesica. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and learning more about your work, the amazing work that you're doing in supporting female founders, doing your work with WeFIV, FemTech Latin America. It's very exciting, and I'm glad you accepted my message and joined the podcast. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap. Okay, that's all for today's episode of Blush and Bloom. I hope you're leaving with a better understanding of where fertility care is headed and how powerful it is when innovation centers around real needs. A huge thank you to Yesica Méndez for sharing her story and expertise. You'll find more about her work and how to connect with her in the episode description. If this episode spoke to you, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, or share with someone exploring their own fertility journey or working in this space. If you'd like to share your own story, you can check out the episode description for details on how to do that. You can also follow Blush and Bloom on Instagram at asale.tech, or visit www.asale.tech for show notes and more. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep asking big questions, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.